Hey Cornerstone family, wanted to take just a few minutes to talk with you. Hopefully it's just a tad more personal than what the many emails I've been sending out tend to be. I wanted to talk to you about Cornerstone Church Regathered, our plan of regathering. So this video will be part of an email that you can click on this and watch basically an explanation instead of reading probably the PDF that I'll send you later today, and then I'll send a really brief explanation in the email. But I just wanted to cover a few things. So we're hoping that we can regather come the end of May, beginning of June, in some form. We have broken up our plan into 4 phases, and for the most part they mirror the 3 phases that both President Trump and Governor Evers have put out. There are a lot of expectations that come with each of the phases that Governor Evers has put out. But for the most part, we're mirroring the idea of 10 people together, 50 people together, and then a couple hundred people together. So for us, phase 1 is what we're doing right now. We'll continue to do this, hopefully just for a couple more weeks. We are trying to gather what we need to do our phase 2. And it's really phase 2 that I wanted to talk to you about. So I'm going to be sending out an email, this video, a PDF of our phases, as well as a survey. And I'd really like you to take the survey. It should only take you just a few minutes. It'll be really helpful for us to kind of gauge where the church family is at. But what I wanted to take just a quick few minutes to describe phase 2. So phase 3 is basically we're back to church, and we probably wouldn't be having lunches together yet, and maybe Wednesday nights would still be off the table. Phase 4 is everything's back. So phase 2 is basically 50 people or so, around 50 people or less. How would we do that? Now, we have one plan that the leadership has agreed to, but we've also gotten we've had some interaction with Captain Sorensen here in Waterloo, and he would like us, I talked to him, and he said there's going to probably be a lot of information that comes out around the time that phase 2 opens, where there's 50 people or less, and I'm going to talk with him then. These are interesting times. You know what? I need to back up, don't I? What's going to drive our decisions in this, and this is an email I sent out last week as well, but I just want to reiterate this because so many of these decisions are unusual, and our personal preferences don't necessarily match what we're choosing to do as a church family. So remember, in that email I said that we want grace to drive all of our decisions. So grace, people that are believers that love God are going to disagree on this. Some people think we should stay quarantined for longer. Other people think we should have been meeting all together as a church 3-4 weeks ago, or maybe never stopped. But on each of those sides, there are wonderful people who love God, love people, don't want people to die, want to care for others, and we need to not be cynical, assume the best of people, and extend grace to one another. So that's how we're going to approach this conversation. And then secondly, there's 2 biblical passages, 2 biblical contexts that we want to consider when we make any of our decisions, and one being both in Romans and in Romans and 1 Corinthians, Romans and 1 Peter tell us to submit to the government. Now, that submission is limited to if they ever were to direct us to do something contrary to Scripture, then we would not obey. We don't believe that's the case yet. We don't know exactly where that line is, and there's been discussions of where that line is, but we don't believe that's the case yet. They may be breaking the Constitution. They may be taking personal liberties, but we don't believe they're requiring us to do something that's unbiblical. So we're choosing to follow their guidelines as of now. Secondly, Philippians 2, we look not on your own interest, but also on the interest of others. So a lot of the decisions that we're making as a church family, we're thinking like, what would other people be comfortable with? What would be their concerns? Not necessarily what our concerns are, but what would be their concerns? And that really comes to play in phase 2. So let me jump back to phase 2. Some of the things we know, like there's really 2 options. One option would be everyone meets in the building, but we keep it divided. So someone comes in the front door and goes to the auditorium, someone comes in the back door, goes in the fellowship hall, and there's 2 distinct groups sharing different bathrooms, not crossing at all, 2 different parking areas. That's the one we kind of prefer. Another option would be to have a couple services and there's no overlap of people at all, except for the people who would be conducting the service, and that would just be probably four or five people. So those are, as of right now, those are the 2 options that we're wrestling with, and some of that's going to pan out more when we get more details in the next couple weeks. There are a few things though that we're pretty certain of. For instance, we won't be passing communion plates. We're going to do that differently. We're going to have families come up to a table up front, and the elements will be there for them to take, and then go back and sit down, and another family would come up. Another family unit would come up. We won't be passing an offering plate. One usher, probably at this point, one usher will walk around and take the offering, not passing it at all. We won't have probably the normal seating. It'll be clusters of chairs kind of spread out and separate from other clusters, and so maybe half of the chairs will be taken out, and we'll just have a bunch of clusters for about 50 people. Same kind of setup in the fellowship hall, and an usher would walk around and do the offering that way. So communion will be different, offering will be different, seating will be different. We'll have some very specific cleaning protocol in mind for any of the highway, the traffic areas of the church, doors, nursery, bathrooms, different things like that, that we're hoping to get, like Rick Coleman and Chris Redberg and Michael Carls and Chris Ann to kind of put in kind of the protocol in place. Bathrooms will probably be very different, kind of depending on what way we do, what option we take. We'll have some protocol for the bathrooms as well. It'll be a little bit different. We will not be offering the nursery as far as people in the nursery for children. Now, the nursery will be open and people can use it as they see fit, but we won't be manning the nursery during that. Probably all the doors will be open so that no one has to touch a doorway. So we'll just keep all of them open, maybe even the main entrance, and then some ushers will close that at the very end. A couple of the ones where we're going to have to look not on your own interest, but also in the interests of others. This is an opportunity for us to serve. This is very exciting. Face masks. As of now, we just feel like part of worship is the things we do that face masks would really hinder. Now, I will say this. Most of the pastors I talk to are planning on having everyone wear face masks. Now, no one's going to tell people they have to, but they're going to encourage that. And we're kind of saying we don't think we're going to wear face masks. And if you're really uncomfortable with that, you can wear one. We understand you may not come because of that for a few weeks until things change. But that one we're really struggling with, because how do you sing with a face mask? Like, I don't think I could preach with a face mask. Although there are other churches that are going to require, if you're singing, like, you don't have to wear a face mask, but if you're singing, you need to, because that's where the virus is spread. So a lot of believers with different opinions on this will probably not have the drinking fountains available at all. So you'd want to bring your own bottle of water or something. We won't be passing out bulletins. We won't be... we'll be discouraging greeting one another. Well, at least physically, typical handshakes and hugs. We're kind of discouraging that. I know it may seem weird, but like fist bumps and elbow bumps. And if you know someone well enough, and you both know that you need a hug, like, that's all good. But typically we're discouraging any kind of physical interaction. And so those are some of the things that would involve phase 2. That's a general idea. Some of that will be more specific as the events come. We're still planning on live streaming all of the services because people may just not be able to come. And so we're trying to set up for that as well in the auditorium. And now that I see that this is 10 minutes, I gotta stop, right? Like, who lasted this long? Text me or email me if you actually lasted this long. Phase 3, like I said, will be basically all back to normal except for lunches and Wednesday night, and then phase 4 would include those. So I'm going to send this out to you guys. I miss you guys. I'm looking forward to worshiping with you. I hope that even this phase 2 kicks in here soon, so that like basically we could probably have half the church meeting once and half the church meeting the next service, and I think that could be really refreshing for all of us. I'm looking forward to taking communion and singing with you. So wanted to be aware of that. If there's any questions about that, just shoot me an email, and I can respond to that. Like I said, a lot of this is fairly set ideas, and some of that's going to have to pan out a little bit more in the future as more details are given. So wanted you to have a general idea. Thanks. Love you guys. Miss you. I'll talk to you later. Bye.